Hello, everyone. I know a few people are jumping on still, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Thank you for joining us today. We're here to talk about something that many professionals fear, which is becoming a commodity. So today's topic is You Are Not a Commodity and How to Communicate Value Through the Client Lifecycle. So all of us know that the tax and accounting industry is continuing to move more and more into the online marketplace. We get a lot of concerns from tax and accounting professionals about how they don't want their services to become a commodity. So in this webinar, we will be diving deep into 3 ideas that we think will help you avoid becoming a commodity in today's digital age. A little bit about this webinar, so it will be about 50 minutes long, and we will leave about 5 minutes for Q&A. Please answer the 3 polling questions along the way for CPE credit. And also stay to the end for some special offers, and it is required for CPE credit that you stay for the full time. This webinar will be recorded and available for playback, and this webinar is designed for US-based small tax and accounting practices. However, we think that any business or practice will benefit from the information. For CPE credit, please note that you must be a CPA. You must participate and be on the webinar for the full 50 minutes, and you must answer the polling questions. At the end of the webinar, you will receive an email with some information on how to log in or create an account with our CountingWorks Pro CPE site. Now I would like to introduce all our presenters, so Lee, go ahead.
All right, thank you, Alexa. Today's topic is, I think, really important with the disruption that's happening in our industry today. A little background on who I am. My company's, I founded Image One, which is a kind of the old school traditional marketing side. So we used to be a big distributor of printed client newsletters, client brochures, information pieces that helped promote and showcase the expertise of tax and accounting professionals. We have been working exclusively with independent pros for many, many years, and over time have kind of transitioned ourselves from the old school kind of what doesn't work anymore to now the new digital world. And I'm excited to kind of talk about some of the concepts that you can take away and use this upcoming 2020 year, either selling your tax and accounting practice services or in any type of negotiation. So excited to talk about this.
And I am Katie Smith, the Customer Success Ambassador here at CountingWorks Pro. And my role is here to help and coach and strategize with our clients and really have their marketing align with the business goals that they've set out for themselves. So I'm also really excited to be reviewing this topic with the team today.
And I'm Steve Anderson. I'm the Senior Business Development Manager here. And I'm really excited about this topic because this is a huge question that a lot of professionals do have, and I'm happy to go into more details in regards to this and just be part of this webinar.
And I am Alexa Myers. I am the Marketing Manager here at CountingWorks Pro, so let's jump on into the webinar, Lee.
All right, let's get started. Everyone knows or has a perception of what a commodity is, but I'm just going to read this, and I want you to think of how this applies to your practice. So Wikipedia defines a commodity as a class of goods for which there's demand, but which is supplied without quality and differentiation across the market. So, what I say to you is, do you think that definition fits your practice and service offering? And if it does, there's going to be quite a few things that you can take away and kind of tweak in your as you market yourself. So how to avoid becoming a commodity. That's what we are talking about today. It's clear that communicating value and creating preference is more crucial now than ever before. So be a problem solver, not a product seller, okay? So with the absence of differentiation, price is the sole factor in choosing a service. But differentiation is building your practice on a strategy to target a specific type of buyer, right? So humans buy emotionally and justify their decisions rationally. So we've come up with ways that you can communicate that value through your selling process. This is what we call the life cycle. So focus on verticals, package your services, and define your value and promote it. So let's get moving into this. So what does focus on verticals mean? So we consider that one of the first steps to selling a perceived commodity is taking the time to understand your prospect situation, right? So while your competitors argued better, you position different. So differentiate yourself by solving the problems your buyers face rather than trying to differentiate commodities. And we're going to talk about how to do that. So how to focus on verticals. Narrowing your target audience into a specific niche will work out better in the long run. And what we mean by this is many tax and accounting pros will just kind of blanket it. I'm offering general CPA services. So I'm trying to now stand out by showing these are accounting services, these are bookkeeping services. And the chances that you're the brand that's going to stand out become harder and harder. There's a ton of competition. So by kind of starting to tweak yourself into a niche, it's easier to speak both to the search engines, but also to the audience that you're working with. So building your reputation as a specialist versus generalist is a much easier process. There's much less competition and it's easier to attract qualified prospects. Being more generalized may seem like a good way to cast a wide net, but it's not a wise approach if you want to be seen as an authority in your market. So let's go. I have a couple examples. What does specialize in a niche mean? So this particular firm is specializing in dental practice. They also have a veterinarian a specialty. Another one may be payroll and HR management. These are different niches. So now you've taken a broad category and narrowed it down to speak to a very specific audience. It is much easier for you to stand out in a more focused audience than it is, trying to get everybody. So, what are different ways that you can do that? We're going to talk about packaging and pricing, but starting to break down the barriers of working with you and getting a little more transparency. So being able to compare different products, being able to provide guidance on what your price is takes a lot of the friction out of the buying process. So we're going to talk about that as well. So what is the first step, right? Identify your prospect. Who are you targeting? Where will you find them? So are you going to find them at meetup meetings? Are you going to find them in the local chamber of commerce? Are you going to find them on social media groups on Facebook, LinkedIn? So once you know where they're hanging out, let's start talking to them. What drives them? So, we give examples: financial success, saving time, lifestyle. So there's different pain points and ways to speak to people that in each niche might be a little bit different. So dive into your prospects' pain points. So what we want to do here is frame your premium value around the pains and problems that prospects face. So some of these problems they know they have. Some of them are very obvious, right? But others, you may be able to, as you talk to them and open up a conversation, try to open up some different issues. So I'm going to actually read these because I think it's important when you're developing your copy, when you're developing however you're positioning your brand, think about what the client's point of view is versus your point of view. So, what does a client think? I have no idea how accounting works, right? I don't have enough money. Cash flow is very tight. Here's a pain point. I may not make payroll later this month. I wear too many hats to concentrate on the numbers. I am managing rising costs and competition. So there's a lot of stress that your audience is going through. So if we can now develop content that speaks to these different pain points, it's a much easier way to, one, start showing the value of the services that you are providing, right? So revenues are okay, but profitability is lacking. So the profit first mindset. I need to sell this business. So preparing for a sell, whether it be now or later, assisting through that process. Our prices are too low. They're actually selling a commodity. How can you help change their mindset? We just lost our biggest client, accounted for 50% of our revenues. What do we do now? All of this government paperwork is killing me. That's an issue that probably most can relate to, right? Another one is I hate the processing payroll. It's a drag. I'd like someone else to take care of it. I'm concerned about making mistakes. Those are the kind of concerns. I don't have enough money to pay my estimated taxes. My accountant is not returning my phone calls, and that we hear that all the time in the reviews. So we have a bunch of receivables. The checks aren't coming in for some reason. Our business credit rating is bad. And I think there's a bunch of different things to talk about in pain points. And I know Steve had some information he kind of wanted to add to this.
Absolutely. No, thanks, Lee. And a couple of things that when you're reading these, I think the focus is not to take everything, but to listen to the client and to pick a few things and be confident in how you can resolve that issue when you're moving forward. Because too much information might be hard, but like you were saying, kind of dive into that prospect's pain points and just pick a couple of them and show them the confidence of your skill set, but also being able to transition into a deliverable for them.
So focus on the value and results. So how often we forget that our prospects don't live every day in our world, right? We've alluded to this earlier. So consequently, they don't have access to the same kind of expertise we do. So as an accountant, you should have the confidence that you are delivering value. We always say your client is getting more out of this than you are, no matter what you charge. So believe in it. And an example I was going to give is, you're working with a small business client who has an idea. They just started out. You assisted them with the startup. You actually, taught them how to do cost controls. You taught them how to grow, how to work within a budget. Over time, you build that business's EBITDA number up to a bigger and bigger number, and then to a point where they can scale. And at some point, you're walking them through the full life cycle of business where they actually can sell that asset for a lot of money. So that is a huge value that you've provided at kind of a very low cost, if you think about it, right? So believe in what you're doing. So overcome your client's biggest objections when you're pitching. Now, think of all these end results. Think of outcomes. Think of what those pain points we're just talking about in your prospect's head. So now you want to kind of communicate that through the selling process. So use their words in your copy. We always say that some of the best selling points are in the reviews that clients leave. Read your own reviews. Look at what people are saying. You're going to find common words that you can use in other marketing copy that will speak to the same like-minded people. So, hey, your results need to justify your rate. Your clients need to believe they're going to get a huge return on the investment that they put through with you. If you truly are eager to position yourself as an expert, which will command a premium fee, take as little time to teach your prospects something about, something they don't know, right? So share maybe some free information on that initial discovery call, appeal to their emotions, fear of, the future and uncertainty, fear of chaos, fear of being insignificant. So kind of talk to different areas that will make them start thinking emotionally, and it will help you through the process. Build trust. As any industry and professional that is built on word of mouth and reputation, your degree of trustworthiness is determined by the relationships you have built, right? So that's something that morphs into your reputation over time. So, take away the risk of hiring you. Make yourself have a very strong reputation. A lot of that can be seen through your digital footprint. That's why when we work with clients, when we talk about digital footprints, it takes much more than just a website to promote your practice. And it's not, if one thing that kind of, gets me a little bit angry when dealing with clients is the perception is, we're a website company. We're 100% not a website company. We are a value communication platform. That's what we do. We help communicate the value that you provide to a larger audience than you would see just through your website, whether that be social media channels, through different citations, through your blog, your email newsletter, whatever it is. You want to be able to take that content, those reviews, case studies, your talking points on your site, and be able to communicate to as many users as possible. Well, you want them to trust in that they're making the right decision with working with you. So the question is my website and digital footprint portraying a clear idea to users of how my practice can help them? So meaning, do you have an old site? Do you have a non-mobile friendly site? Google went mobile first last summer. If you're still with an unsecure website that doesn't fit on a smaller screen, think about that. And we try to teach our clients, to kind of limit the amount of content in their copy. And the reason we're doing that is because the screen sizes are smaller. Google's only showing so much information. Social media is only showing so much information. You need to be able to communicate your value, your selling points in a much smaller area of real estate. And we still have a lot of people, that old schoolers, that want to do it the old way. They build out these huge, robust websites. And the reality is sites that are converting better now are smaller. That's easier to kind of browse through. And if I either feel good about working with you through kind of various social proof and some copy that you've written or not, that's going to be the difference is, are they going to contact you or not? So the question is, if the answer is no to these, then you need to make some changes. And I know, Steve, you had some good insight here too.
Well, kind of piggybacking on what you were just saying is, and the focus is using your whole system as a communication platform, not just a website, not just social media, not just blogs, but it's all one big system, and it has to be on the same, the digital platform. Communicating all kind of throughout the whole system makes a huge impact, because your consumers now have changed. They speak a completely different language. And making sure that your social media, and I use social media as just an example, but the social media is on par with your blog, with your website, with your communication, with your newsletters. All that has to be on the same level.
Yeah, no, exactly. And I think you could even say it this way, considering the reputation you developed over time, And that includes your online reviews. Others will know whom to call when they need tax and accounting help, right? So from someone they can trust. So let's utilize that content to help you grow. Polling question.
All right. So our first polling question, please answer the polling question on your screen. It should launch, and we'll give you some time to answer that. The first one is a true or false question. Is it more beneficial to narrow your target? It is more beneficial to narrow your target audience into specific niches than being more generalized to cast a wide net. So is that true or false? And Lee just kind of reviewed this, so I hope this one's easy. And answer this if you need CP credit. And even if you don't, if you just think you know the answer. Okay, and the answer to this one is true, which I think is pretty self-explanatory.
I think so. Thank you. And is it niche or niche? Because I say it both ways. It's
I don't even know.
Well, we'll figure it out. All right. Thank you. All right. So let's get into package your services. So I like to say stop focusing on price as the primary determinant for why a prospect should buy from you. So explain how your service will positively impact their business. How will you make your prospects' lives better or easier? What are the most common challenges your prospects face? And these are things we've talked about. I just like to kind of keep pounding on it so you leave this webinar with information takeaways that you can actually use in your own practice. So how is your service help them solve their challenges? And a lot of accountants don't use this strategy when they're developing content or copy around their sites, right? So the first step to great commodity selling, we're not selling a commodity, is taking the time to understand your prospect's situation. So let's start jumping into this. So what is value-based pricing? So value-based pricing is defined as a methodology of setting prices primarily based on consumers' perceived value of the product or service in question. And just through research when we were preparing this, I found something from Harvard Review that I thought it kind of summed this up a little bit better. All things being equal, the greater the loss a customer stands to incur and the less its ability to withstand that loss, the more a supplier can add value by reducing that customer's risk. And of course, the more that customer may be willing to pay. So that fits the definition of what a tax and accounting pro brings to the table, right? So think about all the risk and things, making mistakes in payroll, running out of money in cash flow, going bankrupt. There's huge value that an accountant and a tax pro can communicate with a client. And it's just a matter of going around those talking points versus kind of making it again. Here are the bullet points that I offer. And I think those are the kind of things we want you to start thinking about. So how do you create a scalable business? And what does this mean? So, and this is kind of the old word of mouth growth. And I know everyone loves growing by referrals. They're the best way to grow. So, part of this process isn't really discussing, how to get more referrals, but what does a scalable business look like? There's only so many hours in the day. So if you're billing strictly by the hour, you're capping your income at a number of hours you're able to work in a day, right? So this is a mindset difference. So the solution that is working very well for many of our clients is packaging. And these don't necessarily, what we see now is packaging becoming a commodity as well. Everyone copying what Intuit did, or everyone copying, another Spark or whatever it is. That's not what we're talking about when we talk about packages. And I'll go into a little more detail about this as we go on. But packages allow you to scale your practice with a repeatable service by selling your value rather than your time. So you could have 100 people buying a package or 1,000. So then it's a matter of, we're not billing by the hour anymore. Now, okay, we have all these clients. How can we use technology to make ourselves more efficient to be able to serve these people? So we want you to walk away from here, how do I create a scalable business? So what is a package? You need to take your prospects through a logical journey before they buy from you, right? So what we're trying to do is, that journey builds trust and opens up the conversation. So what we're trying to do is create programs that communicate and talk to their pain points, but also have full transparency on the services that you're going to provide. But what I'm getting at when you're developing a package, it's not just where someone copies what Intuit Live, QuickBooks Live did, or Spark or any of these others, where it's just basically those are commodities and packages. I'm saying there are different niches or different types of services that you can offer. So An example is that you work exclusively with startup companies. That could be your packaging. Hey, are you thinking of starting a company? These are the startup packages that we have specifically for you. How to determine what entity you want to choose, how to set up an accounting system, how to do cost controls, how to do budgeting. And those packages can speak specifically to the startup phase of a new business. So you can start out just testing out different programs or what we call packages that are not necessarily geared towards a niche. And when we say a niche, we're talking about I'm dealing with restaurants or I'm dealing with franchises. That could be another different way to take a package that could be perceived as a commodity to something that is nowhere near a commodity. So I'm able to differentiate myself. I'm able to optimize my offering. So meaning I'm going to be really, really good at this, and I'm going to be able to do it faster and better than anyone else. And my reputation is going to be known that this is the go-to person for startups, or this is the go-to person for those restaurants. So you want to show prospects the results they will get from working with you for an exact price. So what you're doing is you're taking the friction out of that process, and it's full transparency. I'm not worried about, oh, if I hire you, what is it really going to cost me? It's right there. And you can always renegotiate that. You can upsell from there. These are just starting points to get people into your process and to build trust. And that's why packaging can be so successful if used correctly. So don't get me wrong, when we talk packaging, we're not saying copy what everyone else is doing, because that's kind of what we're seeing a little bit more now. I want people to actually step back and say, wait a second, I could do this better than anyone else. And let's develop a package around that, test it, and see how it works out. But I think that's kind of the general direction I want you to look at here. So why should you use packaging? It helps you define and sell your services. So there's no gray area. Wait, you're asking for me to do things that I don't necessarily offer. You know how people do it. It's kind of creep in it happens to us too, where someone on a lower end package is asking us to do basically agency level work. And it's, well, no, wait a second. Yes, we offer that service, but this is the program you need to be in. So define and sell your services. Use packages to scale. We talked about that earlier. It is much easier to have a set, defined product or service that you can now scale that to as many users as you want, because you can put them into a funnel. You can close as many as you want. And then there's a point where you can literally have waiting lists for these. And we'll talk about that in a bit. So use packages to create more free time. And I really mean that. Roger AI, Bill.com, there's all kinds of tools and automation that make your job as the accountant easier to do. So, and if you're doing the same thing within the same scope of work, you can actually be more efficient with your time. So what should these packages look like? So we hit 5 areas here. What value is your client receiving? We've talked about this. But showcase why you are the best pro to work with for this specific niche. So how do you do that? That could be case studies. That could be reviews, right? Add waitlist. So you want to have a perception that this is an in-demand service. I need to act now. And more importantly, if someone does churn or cancels or goes out of business, you have a built-in replacement. So you're not having to go out and pound the pavement trying to find someone new to fill that space. You have your set of waitlists directly in there. The package variety, I think this is important. And this is what I was saying, the difference between like a narrow package and a wide one. So you can be very focused, and you'd be surprised, people will find you. If someone's looking, that has that pain point and is looking specifically for that type of service that you're offering in your package, most likely they're going to find you on Google, because there's going to be less competition for you to be indexed on those kind of keywords. So that is why we like to go as small as you want, because I guarantee you there's probably an audience for you. And if optimize your digital footprint, they'll find you. Consider client lifestyle. So have programs for new startups we've talked about, but also have developed growth packages. So let's say it's a SaaS company and they're at $2 million in annual recurring revenue. They want to grow to $5 million. Could you assist them in understanding what KPIs they should be working on? Understanding what retention rates look like. So things that you can actually apply directly to their business that will help them grow, because they want to grow and get to the next level, right? So that's why I was saying it's not always startups, it's not always growth, it could be payroll, whatever it is. There's different parts of the life cycle of both a tax client and a business. So think about that. And then start easy. Just start with one package. So, we say test it out. That's what's great about the internet. Social media. You can do an ad for something. You can push it out via email and go to your current existing database, right? So you could analyze, what are they paying me? What if I now turned all these hourly clients into package clients? And let's say I have 200 clients. If I get 20 of them to move over into packages, and they were spending $1,000 a year for me before, and now they're spending $3,000, you have your built-in growth, right? So test it out. See how your clients respond. I think these are kind of the main points here. So is it easy to understand what the package offers? So, keep it, I've seen some people muddy it up, instead of just having very clear bullet points, they start having, what if this, what if that, what if this? I mean, think about it from a buyer point of view. Just give them a very clear program. This is what it entails. Don't get in with asterisks and all these different things. If once you start the conversation, you need to add that into the negotiation, 100% do that. And that's why I say you can always start talking about a package and customize to each client. Yes, we hear it all the time. Not every client is the same. Not every pro is the same. Not every package needs to be the same. We're just starting these out as talking points to get the discussion going. So does this package match your skill set? I think this is very important. So just don't chase trends if you really aren't really good at it, right? So, do you need to bring on help to deliver what you promised? So is there some element of that package that you don't currently use? Are these the services you want to complete, right? Do you enjoy doing them? And then ask yourself the last one, is this a scalable package? I think that's important because, even on our side, sometimes we develop new features or tools and we realize, wow, this is a lot of work. And, it's not a scalable item. So all of us don't want to be locked to our desk, right? So think about that when you actually develop the content here. If a prospect wants to sign up, how do they get started? So one of the things we see is you make it difficult, right? You want to be, if I want to buy from you, I want to be able to, can I sign up online? Do you have an e-sign process for engagement letters? Is the proposal transparent? Are you actually showing your price on your website? These are all important elements, and I know Steve has some good impact or good input here as well.
Well, yeah, thanks, Lee. And I do a lot of coaching when it comes to this topic, and it's really simple. Make it simple. I see a lot of, like you were saying, the waters are a little more muddy when it comes to the client getting that, kind of getting the sign up. Be transparent, like you were saying, but also make it easy. Put yourself in your client's shoes. How would you want to sign up with somebody? And I think that's the biggest connection, is think as the consumer when they're moving forward.
All right, thank you. And I have actually, I'm looking ahead of the slide, so I have some good stuff that's coming up after these polling questions, but go ahead, Alexa.
All right, so our second polling question, the same thing. It should pop up on your screen and you can go ahead and answer there. This question is, why should you use packaging? A, to define and sell your services. B, to scale your business. C, to create more free time. Or D, all of the above.
Yeah, and one thing I noticed, Alexa, when I was looking ahead is we're getting a little tight on time, so we might push this through a little bit quicker.
Okay. And the answer here is D, all of the above.
All right, so define your value and promote it. And we have, I think there's 9 points in this section, but how to avoid bargaining and charge based on value. I think this is going to be some of the best information here. So, you have the mindset, I am better than you are, right? But it's not about being better, it's about being different. So, if you want to charge a premium price and position yourself in a premium way, you need to focus and optimize your services for a segment of the market that is willing to pay a premium price. So, there's always this where you see someone who you think you have the same skill set and they're charging tens of thousands of dollars for a service that you may even be almost giving away for free. And we always say that's a frustrating feeling to see your peers, doing so well, but you're not able to figure out what they're doing. So what I say is there's 9 ways to change your price negotiation in your favor. So, let's talk about this. And part of it will be, what is value in what we call premium. So a high value or value in excess of that normally or usually expected. So how do we do that? What are the 9 points to find that value point? So do your research. We have already talked about this. People buy emotionally. People buy experiences. How is your onboard? Your get to know me call. The price that you have for your product or service also starts communicating the value. So if you're discounting yourself and you're lowering you're basically lowering your price, you're taking away the value. It's a race to the bottom. And hopefully if you're using packaging, you're starting to communicate value. And if you're using packaging, you're able to differentiate when it comes to communicating this value. So do your research, right? About your messaging. Ask your audience, the people you speak to, what are the areas that they need help with? What are their pain points? And develop your selling, your value around that. So know your niche markets inside and out and cater your marketing lead generations to these potential clients, meaning you're going to create content around these specific areas. So, showcasing expertise, whether you're doing videos, you're writing blog articles, you're jumping into social media groups and sharing your insight, that is how you're going to be able to do that. So negotiations with prospects. This is always a fun one, but you want to make sure, and Katie's going to jump in here talking about objections, but make sure that you've covered all their concerns and objections. Develop a clear understanding of the value you can offer them. Find out what likely competitors are doing. So, what are they charging? So you have that in your back pocket. Decide ahead of time what terms would be acceptable as a minimum. So, you want to keep yourself profitable. I know, Katie, you've been coaching people on this quite a bit.
Yes, I have. I say two things. You always want to be very clear on your negotiating goals, but also I like to say squash the objections up front, and that's just really about being transparent. But back to being clear on your negotiating goals, it sounds obvious, but the reality is most people go into negotiation really not thinking about what they want to walk away with. So it's imperative to be prepared. But with that, consider all the ways that you can add value that don't involve price, and be prepared to share those variables in your discussion. Also, when you share those, you might even see your prospective clients' ears perk up a little bit, and you can better understand your customer's agenda. If you better understand your customer's agenda and the ways that you can add value beyond price, that's really where you're going to find your win-win.
All right, thank you. I agree 100% there. So offer solutions to business problems. And this is the theme. I know we're kind of hammering this, but explain the solutions your practice creates so that the prospect will focus on the value you offer, right? Don't assume the prospect pain points. We've already talked about this. Ask them, and ask the open-ended questions. So you're actually in this conversation. If you set up the calls correctly, your prospect is going to start pointing you in the direction of where you need to show them the value. So speak directly to how you're going to solve those pain points and what the takeaway is for them. So if you have a good idea of the challenges they are facing, you can design your solutions around them, right? So value selling. Value on its own doesn't have to be an ambiguous idea. So you can put a price on the amount of value you offer clients. And this is an example of it's different tax planning. Let's say you're doing Section 199A calculations. There is a significant number that someone who does not know what they're doing, it doesn't go through the planning process, can put on the value that you're actually able to provide. If you can save someone $20,000, $30,000 in taxes, that's a big deal, right? So value is the difference between the price you charge and the benefits the consumer perceives they will get. So, you want that value to be as high as possible and the price to be closer to the value, right? So the more you pivot the conversation to help your prospects focus on the value of your services, the less important the price will become. So avoid comparison. And, we say there is no one-to-one comparison of two practices, right? There's different professionals, different offerings, different solutions, different ways people work with each other. So if we can take the conversation directly out of anything to do with pricing or comparing the services or bullet points that a traditional CPA might have on a website offering accounting services, and we're actually talking about all the different benefits and outcomes, financial outcomes, you've been able to avoid that comparison. So definitely something you need to think about as you go through this. focus on outcomes. If you've never worked with somebody and you're trying to now pitch them on kind of the benefits, you want to show them, paint them that picture. Live the life you dream of living, kind of aspirational type of content. So have a little bit of an aspirational type of conversation. People are wary of spending their money on your services. So, while you're not guaranteeing, you can use hypotheticals to shape a story and uncover the true source of objections, meaning you can really pitch a lot of different scenarios that you've had with your own clients and kind of say, hey, client ABC had the exact same problem you had. What we did is this, and this is where they were, and this is where they are today. So by able to kind of tell a story and to focus on those outcomes, it makes it much easier to sell your services. Package your services. We've talked about this. I think it's some of our fastest growing firms right now are using packaging to drive that process. So, and it's one of those things where, a lot of you don't even know this whole process of kind of the digital life cycle is happening, that people are now searching and becoming comfortable with brands online without ever reaching out and talking to somebody, right? So they're finding content, they know they have a problem, they're going through some sort of nurture program with a brand that they're feeling that they have some level of trust. And they're then making that buying process and deciding basically when they're at the intent stage at this point to actually call you. They may have already known your pricing. They've already probably been to your website 4 or 5 times. They've analyzed all 3 of your programs. So by the time they call you, it's not a matter of going through the programs. It's which package is correct for me, right? So this transparency often leads to less price sensitivity since you remove the ambiguity from the equation. So instead of worrying about what the price is, they're like, what is the value? What am I getting for this? I think this is an important element to think about and kind of backs up why packaging works so well. So number 8, I think, is important because a lot of times, we hear this feedback, and I know Katie wants to add some things here from talking to clients, but understanding proper negotiating. So sometimes, pros don't know how to overcome different objections. They give away price right away. And what happens is, if you're starting to just give away price, that's not bargaining, or that would be bargaining, not negotiating, right? So there's a couple different ways to do this, but if the prospect seems invested in working with you, but you insist they cannot afford your price, then you start negotiating. So maybe you take away a couple parts of the package or program or service. So you're still providing a level that is in line with your value, but you're not necessarily saying, I'm going to do it for the same price. So I can bring down the price a little bit, but I can't do service A, B, and C. And that kind of leads the conversation. And Katie, go ahead and add some of that since your experience with it.
Yeah, for a more effective negotiation, you really want to focus on creating and claiming value. And smart negotiators recognize that from the get-go, and they look for win-win situations, which is, of course, what you want at the end of the day. And I feel when you take the time to build rapport and trust, both sides will feel more comfortable sharing what their underlying interests are in the negotiation. And you can then take that knowledge to identify potential trade-offs. So if there's an issue you don't feel strongly about, you might be willing to accept it in exchange for concession on an issue that you value greatly.
Yeah, perfect. I think that's very important. The difference between negotiating and bargaining, we've kind of talked about this, but I'm just going to read the slide because I think it's important. So bargaining is about focusing on who is right. It is competitive and win-lose, and Katie alluded to win-win, right? Negotiation is about focusing on what is right. So it's a cooperative and win-win. We are partners in this. So in the context we're talking about now, negotiating is when you make adjustments in terms, conditions, and scope of work between 2 parties, while bargaining is when you just have been asked to do the same work for less money. So we don't want to do that. You want to negotiate, you don't want to bargain. I think that is a mindset we see every day. And unfortunately, it brings down the value of what all tax and accounting pros can charge because there's too many pros that start bargaining because they get desperate or they're not confident in the value they're providing and don't kind of say, hey, I'm not working for less. So it's an important element that we like to bring up here. And number 9 is my favorite one. So when in doubt, use silence, right? So a lot of times you're in a negotiation and, there's terms that have been presented. You don't necessarily need to jump in there. You can allow the prospect to start the conversation and start dictating kind of where they're going. And it also indicates that you have some confidence in your service and the price you're proposing, right? So you don't necessarily have to jump in and justify it right away. It's kind of the quiet confidence, be silent. Just give a little bit of a pause during that part of the negotiation, see what happens. I know, Katie, you've seen this work in the real world too.
Yeah, this is my favorite one also. Tactical silence is your new negotiation strategy. You should just plaster that up somewhere in your office and just to remind yourself, because it's really your ally when you hit a stalemate. Silence works when you need to reach a breakthrough with a potential client, but you're unable to see eye to eye on the deal points. So I like to say, prepare to embrace the pause. Even though it might feel like you're not really doing anything, the pause can be so powerful. So use positive, neutral body language, relax your shoulders. This, of course, is if you're in person, but remember to keep eye contact and direct a friendly, positive smile. When you use your nonverbal communication skills to match your verbal communication skills, it enforces your message.
Yeah, no, that's great insight. And there was some studies I was doing on just the way, believe it or not, used car sales people and how they actually, the ones that are successful and not. And it comes down to that whole human element, the smile, the eye contact, and people that don't, and how it breaks off who is successful and isn't. There's a bunch of case studies and data that points that say to that, which leads us into polling question number 3. And I think we're like 45 minutes in time. So I think we're pretty good to close this up and have some time for some Q&A here at the end.
All right, so we'll do a quick polling question here. Which is not a good way to change price negotiation to be in your favor? So is it A, value selling, B, bargain the price with the customer, C, focus on outcomes, or D, package your services? So which of these did we not review as a good way to change price negotiation to be in your favor? Okay, and the answer is B, bargain the price with the customer. So instead of bargaining, you actually want to use negotiating, which Katie and Lee went over really well.
All right, thank you, Alexa. So we're going to start wrapping this up and kind of talking about the final closing statements. So, communicating your value. So use reviews and case studies to communicate the value you deliver, right? Have confidence to charge what you think is right and what your client can perceive as worth it. So start right there. Believe in what you're doing, stand behind it. A client can sense it too. They can sense confidence, and it makes them feel better as well when they're actually making that buying decision. Use real world examples of how a profit first mindset will improve your client's financial results. These are areas where, again, we're taking them to look at the outcomes, not necessarily what the services are or the commodity pieces of what you're doing. So I think these are very important items. How do you define it and promote it? So ask a few clients if they agree with your summary of the value add you provide, right? So start putting together some talking points. Use that copy in your marketing messages, use it in your newsletters, use it in your blogs, use it on social media, use it on your website. Make it the center of your messaging. Think of it as almost a political campaign. I'm going to hit these points over and over again. So every contact, whether it be the front office, whether you're talking to clients, whether they see your digital side, you want to speak to prospects on the phone, to your online presence, to be it's basically the same way, right? So set up time to speak with one of our digital marketing experts to see how else you can promote yourself. And this is where we're kind of finalizing the presentation, but a little bit talking about what we do here at CountingWorks Pro. I said before, CountingWorks Pro is a value communication platform. So our entire job is how do we showcase the independent tax and accounting professionals' expertise, their reputation online, that will do a few things, right? So it will give them more referrals. It will enable them to charge more for their services. It will enable them to scale. So if they're using packaging type of programs that are hourly based compensation, it's an easier way to scale. And how could we bring all of this into one platform? So that is kind of what we do. That's how we work with clients. These are evergreen solutions. So meaning once we establish your footprint and once we start building out your reputation and really start communicating the value that you provide, and that's what we do through all of our marketing efforts and our automation, we're communicating the value to your audience on a day-to-day basis, right? So it's much more than a Wix website or whatever else you might have right now. It's really kind of charging your marketing efforts to a whole nother ROI. So it's definitely something that if you want to talk to us, please let us know. We do have a couple different partner success stories. These are some clients that have worked with us, and these kind of results are not out of line with what we do with a lot of our growth levels. So Olaru's Premier Tax Services, 81 online reviews, 335% organic traffic growth. Stephen Vogt, 235 new leads. This is old data. 102 online reviews. These are real world success stories. We have professionals that are growing like crazy. So it's definitely something we'd love to hear from you and speak with us. And that leads us into our final polling question of the day.
Yep, so this is just a fun polling question. So do you want additional tips and tricks on how to get more clients easily? So I hope everyone answers yes to this. We definitely have some more information we can share outside of this webinar. So go ahead and answer.
Yeah, obviously we know the correct answer here. And we're going to help this along too, because we do have a special offer. And I'm going to let Steve speak to the special offer right now.
Oh, absolutely. So thank you for joining us on the webinar. And if you do mention the webinar, please let us know. We are going to be offering the first 3 months of our services when it comes to the monthly marketing packages at 20% off. And that's with our website bundles as the communication systems. Also, we do have TaxBuzz Pro and CountingWorks Pro websites that we are offering $100 off. That is an annual commitment, but we definitely want to make sure we're giving back because we want you guys to see the value, but more importantly is we want to build that whole success story as well. We are waiving all setup fees as well.
All right, perfect, Steve. And one thing, if you are a current client of ours and you're on this webinar, we will discount if you upgrade to a growth program or a higher end program than you are now. We'll also give you the same intro price off in the beginning. So we hope to hear from you there. And I think we have some time to get into some Q&A. We're right now almost at exactly 50 minutes. So there's a lot of value staying on. So go ahead, Alexa.
Yep, so the first question I have is, one package cannot fit all clients. How do I overcome that?
Yeah, so we've spoken to this issue throughout the webcast, but what I would do, and the recommendation, is to not have one package for all clients. You can still have some sort of set programs that you have for what I'll call general bookkeeping and accounting, because there's many of our pros that are using those now and doing very well. But I would experiment, and I would go after some what I call some more lucrative or programs that you can charge much more. Maybe that is helping a business attract or prepare to get financing. I mentioned the startup side, but it could be, I focus specifically on SaaS businesses. They're going to perhaps need all kinds of different services, but they're also going to be willing to pay more for these. So I would definitely look at all the different non-kind of standard programs and play with them and test them and, create them, send out some emails, throw them on social media and see what happens. Test out some different price levels. When Intuit and QuickBooks Live came out, I think they had like 3 or 4 different programs and pricing levels that I noticed as they continued to test in beta before they came out with what they ended up with. So those are some ways to go around that.
Nice. Okay. And the second question I have is, how do I handle pushback because my prices are too high?
Yeah. So the first thing I would say is don't backtrack, and I would ask the person who's pushing back at you, you don't backtrack, but say, which part don't you want? And that's where now you're saying, okay, I can limit the amount of services and reduce the price, but I'm not doing the same program at a reduced price, right? So you can cut back the services at the same price kind of thing. So ask them which service they don't want. You might find yourself going service by service and explaining the value. And then as the client realizes they want the whole thing, you won't have to cut any of your fees. So that would be issue 1. And then issue 2 is don't dismiss the buyer when they push back. It seems, and it doesn't mean they don't want to work with you or don't have the budget. They may genuinely be concerned. And as long as you address those concerns so you can move forward, by circling back to your product's value or your service's value, how much will it cost you to do nothing, right? So think that way. Get them to think about the bigger picture outcomes. I think those would be things that would really help.
Great. And the third question I have is, how do you win a price war?
How do you win a price war? I don't think you do, right? So you win by getting out of it. I'll give an example. You're negotiating with a prospect on a big, let's say you're doing a monthly accounting service, and it's a $3,000 or $4,000 a month service. It includes some virtual CFO attributes. But as you think, as you're signing the deal, they mention they've talked to another competitor, right? So you find out they now have quoted a lower price, which you can't possibly match. So the part of this story here is, the prospect's then pushing you to beat that price. And then they say, hey, you'll get the job. How do you respond? And what I would say is, hey, let's put the price aside. If price was not an issue, do you like and trust us more than them? Does our reputation and results, our digital footprint, that beautiful website, the professionalism, the responsiveness stand above theirs? Because if you truly think we're equal and the differentiator is price, I would rather you go with the other firm. We don't want you to choose us because we are the cheapest, because we are not and never will be. And I think you need to stand behind that thought process. We offer a premium solution to premium businesses. We're working with the best of the best. We know what we're doing. We want successful outcomes, right? So, it's kind of back to the outcomes. We're going to bring your business to new heights and profits. You should trust us that we're the best solution and we want to be your partner. But again, if you're looking for the cheapest solution, please go with the other one. I think that is the best way to do that. You might throw in some silence and see if they're just trying to be aggressive on the product negotiation. But whatever you do, do not devalue your services. You want that business to be successful. You want to be successful. So, kind of say that to them, trying to save a few bucks on advice that actually drive a better financial outcome. Kind of what does that mean to you? And usually, most likely that will win you the business.
Okay. And another good question about price is, when do I introduce price into the conversation?
I've used this line before and I've gotten laughed at, but just like Fight Club, the first rule of pricing is you do not talk about pricing. That is, you don't start that. You're talking about all the other things. While I've already told you to use packaging in your digital marketing efforts, so it kind of contradicts the two, right? But the reality, by showing these packages, we're actually helping our customers decide without friction. So meaning they're already looking and researching this. They already kind of know what you charge. So you now are not talking about price. Responding to a price is hardwired in our brains, right? So when we see something that is expensive, we know immediately, hey, this isn't for us, right? So what we want to do is, we want to perceive value in the deal, right? So what did we talk about before? We want to bring emotion into the negotiation. And we don't want to do that. We don't want them to start pushing back to, I don't want to pay too much. I don't want to pay too much. So we don't want to deal with emotions. And that's kind of what we've been talking about today. So it is not your prospect's job to set pricing, right? An optimal price is one that is accepted, but not without some initial resistance. So you want to be priced accordingly. Meaning if you're not getting enough resistance, you're not charging enough. And we say that often in tax practices, especially. We had a rule of thumb, if 10% of the people are complaining, you're probably hitting the right number. And that's the only way to grow that revenue line. You can't just keep the pricing, set. So as a general rule, you want to talk about price just at the moment. So the assignment is clearly defined and agreed upon. So now you guys say, hey, this is what the program looks like. Now let's talk about price. What is this going to cost me? And when your prospect shows a significant interest in what you're doing. So that's kind of my read on that one, but I think that's some good insight as well.
All right, that's all I have for Q&A, so I can close out today's webinar. If anyone has any further questions, please visit our website or give us a call. We hope that you're walking away from this webinar with some really helpful tips on how to avoid becoming a commodity in today's digital age. So thank you all for joining us today.
All right, thank you guys. We'll see you again.